Hello and welcome to Random Movie Roulette. We are here in the shambles of our
Studio Seaman, but we've got a movie that we're just dying to tell you about.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have not seen it, but Jack, this week you got to check out the Suicide Squad.
I got to see the Suicide Squad at 10 a.m. At Lincoln Center AMC. It was
prime time for viewing
the greatest time in the IMAX, in the biggest hundreds of people seat theater, and I was there with maybe 4 or 5 other critics. One or two of them I actually recognized from like significant publications. So I was like, if COVID wasn't a thing, I would totally say hi to these people. But what you gonna do when we're literally miles apart watching James Gunn's The Suicide Squad? So yeah, I wrote a review for this on Letterboxd, kind of more in depth. I don't want to get too spoilery. And the biggest thing I think I can say about it is great. I love it. It is absolutely the DCEU movie I would rewatch the most. Mm-hmm. It speaks to monster kids in all the gore, dark humor levels that we love and all this shit that we love. That said, if you've seen the trailers, I hesitate to say you've seen the movie, but you've kind of seen the movie. You've seen all the jokes. You've seen all the action sequences. You can kind of tell who's going to live, who's going to die. The only thing that you will go in not expecting is how much heart the movie actually has, which is where Gunn actually excels with this stuff, much like with Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like all the jokes, all these fringe characters from the comics and this wacky stuff and whatever, but it sticks with you because you like these characters, you like their kind of underdog status and what they represent, and you like how they work together and find their own self-worth and their worth as a unit and a family, and that's done really beautifully here. I definitely think I like this certainly more than Guardians 2, maybe more than Guardians 1.
Okay, that's really interesting to me. I will say I think, and again I haven't seen the movie, so I'm here in the capacity of just keeping the conversation flowing, and I have a lot of curiosity about this movie.
Shoot questions at me.
Yeah, so we'll get to the comparisons to the other Suicide Squad movie in a bit, but as far as James Gunn's filmography goes, like I really do hold up Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 as just like a very perfectly structured movie.
It really is. I would say like that and the first Avengers for me are like the key gems of like the MCU. And there's lots of great MCU stuff, and I know people love Endgame, but I'm just like, those feel like they jumped off comic pages. They're for everyone. They're huge crowd pleasers. It's
And so this has that same energy.
It does not have an energy of bring your children to it. Well, this is absolutely the least family-friendly movie, possibly the least family-friendly superhero movie ever, and we just talked about Howard the Duck, which has duck condoms, but it truly is like a grotesque, sweet but also very mean movie. Like, it's everything my dad has ever hated about like the Tim Burton Batmans and DC and stuff. Like, it is very much in the spirit almost of like Batman Returns, although maybe with a bit of a happier kind of spirit to it, but it's a happy spirit about incredibly dark things.
So but this does have like kind of like a light sensibility around it.
Absolutely. This is an easy watch. It's an easy, breezy watch, and you know, you get right into it. It's really quick to start, which is great. You're not expecting, I think, how invested you'll get with the characters and their journeys and how they come together, which is great. And that's what you want. Some
of these characters are kind of leftovers from David Ayer's Suicide Squad movie.
Yes.
Does this movie do a better job of endearing you to them?
Holy shit, yeah. So in David Ayer's Suicide Squad, I think the 3 big great actors for me were obviously Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. DCEU is basically just her franchise now. And Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang. All come back, all are put to good use there, but I will say all of them are also not minimal necessarily, but they're not used as much as you might either want or think when compared to all the new characters.
Right. And I should say, like, James Gunn very specifically like had a Suicide Squad team in mind that he was very attached to, and he kind of added some of these other characters.
Some of these things, well, there are obviously it's a big cast because a lot of people were expected to die, and sure enough they do.
Right.
I know, and Idris Elba was originally not supposed to play Bloodsport. He was supposed to play Deadshot, but they did decide, we'll give Will Smith a chance to come back at some point. His character is very much like Deadshot in that he's a criminal, he has a daughter, and they describe him as anything in his hand is a lethal weapon, and he's an expert marksman. Okay. However, there's a fun joke where they also describe Peacekeeper in the same way, and there's a feud between the two of them because they hate that they're both basically the same person on this team.
Which is a great bit.
Bit. Their rivalry is absolutely a huge driving force in the film when you don't get to see, the big names like Harley that you wanted to see. Ratcatcher 2, I should say, is absolutely the MVP of the movie. She knocks it out of the park. Daniela Malachite, something. I forget her last name. I apologize. She is the strongest part of the movie. I am very much looking forward to John Cena's Peacekeeper series. I think that'll definitely be interesting. It's an interesting character. Certainly the second darkest character we've ever seen next to the Joker.
Is this movie very concerned with setup, would you say?
With setup? Describe setup.
I set up as in for movies that are not the Suicide Squad. Like, is it very concerned with either setting up?
Is it involved with anything? It's involved with nothing except maybe the Peacekeeper series that's gonna come after it. But that's literally just in the end credit scene. It's just to let you know, hey, there will be more Peacekeeper. It's very much its own self-contained thing. The only even reference it has to the rest of the DCEU, almost much like Shazam, which was kind of nice, is like they mention Bloodsport put Superman in the ICU with a kryptonite bullet, and that, Harley and Boomerang have been on the Suicide Squad with Rick Flag like forever, and just every time they go to prison they do this. So there's been a number of missions since the whole Enchantress thing. That
and is there a clear sense of continuity, or do they keep it kind of vague as far as
to the whole DCEU?
Let's say one for as far as the last Suicide Squad movie, but then also as a whole, do you feel like where this takes place?
Really, this very much could take place anywhere. It just has to take place at some point after Superman is alive and after the first Suicide Squad movie. That is the only prerequisites. Otherwise, you could plug it in anywhere, which I think is very much the nice thing. I don't even think you need to have watched the first Suicide Squad movie, because you can just tell from context clues. Like, it opens literally with Harley like hopping on the helicopter and being like, "Oh, Boomerang, how you doing? Oh, who's this guy? What's this jerk doing?" And Rick Flag just being like, "Sit down, this is the mission." So Rick Flag is great in this, by the way.
So you had mentioned that to me before, which I was blown away with, because I think he's arguably like one of the weaker points of David Ayer's Suicide
so much
Squad.
Stronger here, and Harley, Waller, and Boomerang were all kind of demoted a little bit.
Down.
Harley's still in it a lot because, again, Margot Robbie has all these deals with Warner Brothers, and Harley Quinn's an incredibly popular character. Waller isn't as directly involved as she was in the first movie. She's still a character. She's maybe not as much of a character. And then, Captain Boomerang is there. But Rick Flag is really great. I do definitely love that character. There is a funny moment where he, Bloodsport, and Peacekeeper are all... Peacemaker, I forget, it's Peacemaker, are all like dressed like golf polo bros, like
That's fun.
But they're like wielding shotguns and stuff, and it's just kind of funny. It's funny seeing everyone like wear casual wear at some point, and they get out of their costumes.
So it sounds like there's a fair amount of variety to this movie, and I think in David Ayer's Suicide Squad, it was laser focused. I mean, on dog shit, but it was like laser focused for a lot of the movie. They went on a mission. And everything happened very sequentially and pretty immediately, and it kind of felt like you were following them on
This movie has a funky timeline, but it's a fun timeline.
Okay.
Because it's very much like this thing happens and this thing happens, and like, oh, you're left at a cliffhanger, and then it's like, but 15 minutes earlier. It's almost like the ending of Clue, where they're like showing the different endings, and they're like, but here's what really happened, or here's this thing or that thing. And so there's really cool kind of scene transitions. that are just like a cool stylistic touch. This movie's beautiful to look at.
That's great.
I will say that. So it's a winner. See it with a crowd, however that's possible. If you think going to the theater's right for you, do that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, man. So you saw this in IMAX.
Yeah.
This is part of Warner Brothers day and date releases with
Yes.
HBO Max. Do you feel this warrants a theater viewing? If so, did the IMAX format feel specifically necessary for it?
As you know with me, I took the longest to wane off of like DVDs to Blu-rays and stuff.
Yeah.
So, I'm also not a person who's like big into loud noises and stuff, and I don't need things on the biggest screen or whatever. I think we're all used to watching things on small screens after our phones. I think the biggest thing is it was impressive enough on a big IMAX screen, but you want to be with people who are going to laugh at these fire-a-minute jokes, because James Gunn obviously is known for his sense of humor, much like Guardians of the Galaxy. This is joke a minute. You want to be with an atmosphere of people who are energized and pumped up. I was with like 5 critics sitting feet and rows apart, all wearing masks, just like, okay, we're here at 10 in the morning doing this for work.
Yeah.
So,
I've been to a few like early morning screenings, some even earlier, I think, than 10 a.m.
And you all just wish you were watching it on a screener at home.
Yeah, although I will say the most alive audience for one of those was for the documentary Hail Satan.
There you go.
People were really engaged for that one and pretty crowded. So I mean, this all sounds very promising. What I want to ask is, I think we're at a point now with the DCEU where things are still very much up in the air. We don't really know what the plan is. We have Black Adam is shooting right now.
I'm excited for Black Adam. I'm excited for Shazam 2. My big attitude going to DC Forward is just like, none of it matters until they do whatever they do with The Flash.
Right.
And we'll see if The Flash even matters. As far as having an actual business model, I don't feel like Warner Brothers necessarily has a roadmap as to a place they're going or whatever, but I almost find that refreshing and fun, as opposed to Marvel, which is very much, you must watch this Disney Plus series to understand this thing in this movie and then lead to this thing. And it's just like, well, especially like if you've read the comics, it's just like, it almost feels a little underwhelming. It's like we have all this build to like Agatha Harkness. It's like, I can imagine what Agatha Harkness looks like. You could have just given this to me right off. I don't think I needed this. So, and having these builds, that's the other thing I really like about DC is we're just getting characters like when we need them. We don't need like 6 films to build up someone turning into this C-list character. It's just like, and here you have Bloodsport and Harley and Deadshot and whatever, and we don't need to have like one Batman movie per thing to set them all up like they're doing obviously with the Thunderbolts for Marvel. It's just like throw everyone together and have fun and develop those characters, and I think it's doing what we want to see them do. It's
really cool that you can, you look at the Suicide Squad, Black Adam, the Flash, and the Batman. These are like
you see this wealth of characters who are like A-listers, not like
A-listers, but
B-listers
also
and C-listers like with Marvel.
These all feel, from what we've seen, and granted, we've seen very little of Muschietti's Flash and very little of whatever's going on with Black Adam, but these seem like really specific and unique visions. It doesn't seem like I like Marvel movies, and don't get me wrong, but Marvel movies seem to have a
directors do
feel.
not get the agency that they get with DC here. Especially now you're looking at this, which is a Marvel director who came to DC to make this one movie. Frankly, I would love if after Guardians 3 he stays with DC and sticks to more Suicide Squad. We'll see what his contract and stuff looks like. But I support this movie in any way you can. I really, don't pirate it too, but like just in a world where we're just all going to give these superhero movies so much money, make sure this is the superhero movie you're giving money and not like Black Widow. Black Widow kind of stinks. This is much more fun than Black Widow. In terms of my 2 spy espionage Black Ops movies, I'd much rather have the one with the sociopath wearing a toilet bowl on his head than this boring one about a character that we already know is dead.
Fair enough. All right. Well, Jack, thank you so much for, walking us through Suicide Squad. I'm legit even more excited to watch it now. We're about 2 days away from it hitting HBO Max, and looking forward to sitting down with my wife and enjoying some good old cinema.
I will also say, just as a quick note, I appreciate one thing I think that DC does really well that Marvel has also gotten flack for not doing is they definitely show appreciation for the writers who create these things.
That's great.
Not just the screenwriters, but in the comics, there's so much details from like Osterman's original run on the Suicide Squad, because I was like looking it up after. So many details and stuff that made it into this movie that make it feel so much more like those comics. And there's, you see the big special thanks to, and it's like every writer who's ever done Suicide Squad, from John Osterman to Gail Simone to whoever, and it's very nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping like this is a sign of like lesson learned, because I do feel like that stuff does come from James Gunn, who has a real love for the Suicide Squad property in general and its history. Yeah, but I think on our show we've dumped on WB a lot for their interference in their movies. I'm hoping that this is a sign that they're willing to step in the right direction of letting their creators kind of take more artistic license and put more like love and actual passion into their movies. We'll see, what happens with again, Flash, Black Adam, and the Batman. But this is really promising what you said, and I really hope that they kind of stay on this path and maybe even make a Mortal Kombat sequel that isn't such a steaming pile of dog shit.
Yeah, well, people felt their Wonder Woman 84, there was a lot of director control there too, and people felt ways, but it was definitely a director's vision and not just something by a committee.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here for this review of The Suicide Squad. It comes out on HBO Max and in theaters on August 6th. Be sure to check it out. Let us know in the comments what you think of it. Like and subscribe. It's a terrible, trite YouTube bullshit thing to say, but it really does help us out. We've got no subscribers. So if you're seeing this,
we want to be able to see more stuff like this. We need studios to see that we're worthy of that and that we appreciate the space that they give us and the content that they give us,
which we
need to show that we have an audience that's interested in us at all.
Yeah, man. So be sure to follow us here. You can also follow us on Twitter at RM Roulette. Keep up to date with what we're doing. We are right now monthly on episodes. Typically we are bi-monthly, so keep an eye on that for what we're doing. We just recorded an episode of Howard the Duck right before this. If you want to watch us record things live, you can do so on twitch.tv/RM Roulette. If you want to support the show monetarily, which we really appreciate, helps keep the lights on over here. Literally, the studio is falling apart, and Patreon money is what's going to help put it back together. Patreon.com/RM Roulette, the $1 tier. You're helping us out sincerely, and we fucking love you for it. And we also get you access to our Discord, where we chat about not just movies too, but like all sorts of fun random bullshit. But you can also at the $5 tier get yourself some bonus content, man. For our main episodes, for all of the movies we're covering, we are doing commentary tracks with them, and they're I honestly think they're arguably better than the full episodes we're doing for them, so it's definitely worth checking out. We also exclusively review 3 newer movies for patrons, and they're really fun, quick-paced, kind of old-school, early RMR style episodes that we really love doing. So check us out over there. Jack, where can people find you?
I am Jack on 35mm on Instagram and Jack Patterson on Letterboxd.
Right on. You can find me on Twitter at Louis J. Otero or on Instagram at RM Roulette Lewis. Thank you guys again. We will be back soon enough with some more sweet content, baby.